Have you ever wondered what's the key skill that really drives success and what really can take you far away and achieve the dream that you've been always dreaming, right? Well, Kim Perrel actually talks about the execution factor, and she describes that the one skill that really drives success is the execution factor. Well, who is Kim Perrel, right? She's an American serial entrepreneur. She actually grew her very first business from her kitchen table that actually grew over 100 million US dollar, and she sold her last company for more than, well, not more than, for about 235 million US dollar. So these are fascinating story, right? I mean, starting from the kitchen table and selling a business over 235 million US dollar is definitely a success story. But what's behind this? What's behind the key success, right? So, well, Kim Perrel really tells in her book the key traits and that can achieve success for anyone. And I personally really relate to this because when I have an idea, I also struggle sometimes, like where to start, how to get my ideas off the ground, and how I can really make a successful business out of that, right? And I'm sure if you ask my friends if I do have ideas or not, they will definitely say yes, because I always try to share with them as well what I'm thinking, what I've been working on and such. But at some point also I feel stuck. But this is something also Kim Perrel talks about in her book, because she didn't really see the success as a straight line from being in the kitchen table to achieving 235 million US dollar. No, it had really ups and downs, right? And this is all actually is described very well and also very much constructively in this book. So let me share with you today what the book is all about and what it tells, and what are the key traits that we can really focus on if we want to achieve the success that we always wanted. So the first trait is about having a vision, of course. Second of all, being passionate about. Third of all, taking action. Fourth of all is actually being resilient to all the setbacks. And the last one is building relationship. So I will be describing each of the traits and give examples, and also I will share Kim's life story as well, what she thought and how each of those traits helped her achieve the success. So the first trait that Kim talks about in her book is about having a vision. A vision is a North Star. It actually tells you where you are going. It leads you to take actions that should be taken, right? Because you are not distracted. You have your North Star and you are following that. So for Kim, she wanted to be financially free and she wanted to be in charge of her own destiny. And therefore, actually, she set her vision accordingly. She took steps accordingly as well. Obviously, she was working for various companies, but she realized that that would not help her achieve the success she wanted. So she started working on her own company. She eventually worked for her first company for 3 years straight to build a business and to reach out to potential clients and such. Eventually, she sold her business, for her first business, for 30 million US dollar. So it was not a straight line success for her. She had so many setbacks, of course, but because she set her North Star at a very early stage of her life, she knew where she wanted to go. She did not really struggle to overcome those setbacks. So that's what also she suggests the readers, because I mean, once you set your vision, you can also know what sort of steps you should take in your life, right? A vision can be many different things, such as a major purpose, like having financial freedom, or a goal that you want to achieve, such as running a marathon. So you also know what sort of steps to take in order to run the marathon, right? How many kilometers you should run before you finally run the marathon. So you see that having a vision really leads you to take the actions that also bring the result that you want to see at the end. Then also the second trait that Kim talks about is actually being passionate about what you do. So of course, what you are willing to sacrifice and suffer for, right? I mean, that's what passionate is all about. It doesn't mean that the sleepless night or the stresses will really go away, but it means that having a passion for something that you do would make things bearable for you. And also, you would really go the long way to achieve your North Star. Well, Forster really said it pretty clearly that one person with passion is better than 40 people merely interested. So that really says it all, right? I mean, having an interest is of course needed, but it would not really motivate you when you have those setbacks. But if you're really passionate about something, you would go for the extra mile. So Kim also shares another story from an early age of her, and that she really loved horseback riding, but she couldn't afford that. I mean, when she was 11 years old, she didn't have any income and such, and also her parents were not really so rich that they could afford it. So she was only allowed to have horseback riding 2 times a month, which she wasn't satisfied, of course. But then she also could probably beg for it, but it wouldn't work. She knew that her parents would not be really giving her the money just like that. So she needed to earn it, right? So she went to the owner of the horses, and she was actually trying to make a deal in a way that she could eventually ride those horsebacks, and in return she could provide something. So she was eventually cleaning the stables, horses stalls, right? 7 hours of cleaning just to get 1 hour of horseback riding, and that's what she did. I mean, at that age, she really needed that, and that's the only way to gain that 1 hour of horseback riding. So she did the sacrifice, and she said that only happened because she was so passionate about horseback riding that she did not care what sort of work she was doing to achieve that. So this gives you an example of the things that we should do as well, and one can really do and sacrifice once they're really passionate about it. So once you realize what your vision is, and if you are really passionate about and so on, the next step comes with taking action, right? Because executing a good plan requires taking the first step, and that's what Kim talks about as well. So taking action does not also mean that you have to really stick to the plan. You have to see the end result. Of course, taking the action lets you realize what sort of modification you need along the way. You can always change, but if you don't really take the action, you don't see the outcome as well, right? So for Kim, the action she took towards building her business, towards achieving her North Star, was to move to Hawaii, right? There were so many negative thoughts and comments from her friends, from her family members, that moving to Hawaii would be a completely different picture. She didn't know what was coming ahead, so it might have been a setback for her and such, but she really disregarded everything. She took the first step and she moved to Hawaii. And we all know the story now that she eventually sold her business for a pretty decent amount of money, right? So this wouldn't have been possible, of course, if she wasn't taking that first step. And Kim also says that taking action does not have to be just a random action. Obviously, you have a plan, you have a vision, and you need to probably identify certain things, such as identifying the roadblocks, identifying the additional action steps. What are the resources you have available, and can you make a use of those things, right? As I said earlier, you can always change along the way. It does not have to be a rigid work that you have to follow on and focus on. You can always change, and step by step, you can also learn to behave differently. There is a Japanese word, by the way, called kaizen, and it says that we need to improve continuously on a daily basis. Even though we are working on a perfect plan, but there is still room for improvement. And that's what we can do only once we take the first step, right? But Kim also spoke about resilience in her book. This is the 4th key traits that she mentioned. Thomas Edison, we all know him, right? The greatest inventor, and he said that genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. So what does it mean? It means that you have inspiration, of course, but then you have to sweat to achieve and to make the inspiration a reality, right? So life never goes as planned, as we all know that we have uncertainty, and that is rather certain, right? Certain uncertainty will happen, but how fast can we recover from them? How well can we really bounce back and set the new course? I think that defines success. Kim also talked about failing forward. That means once we have setback, we should really take experience and learn from them. We should really look for all the other options that are available and see through it. We should not really sit idle and mourn about the failure, but we should start taking additional actions that are required to overcome those failures. And she also said that being resilient makes you really competitive, or gives you competitive advantage, because you are not going to give up. And this is something also I think we all can resonate with our personal life, right? Because once we start working on something, we see that it does not happen as easily, but then we keep trying, and once after so many trials, we see the end outcome, right? So the last trait that Kim talks about is building great relationship. In her words, great relationships are not luxury, they are indeed necessary thing. So of course, we tend to think and do things on our own. We think it might make things faster, we can achieve results easier and so on. But in reality, once you build a very good relationship and you have people who you can trust and rely on, then you can also do more things, and you can go far away together, right? And Kim suggested we should really focus on 3 key elements that are critical to great relationships and also in execution, which are building a team and network around you. Then also you need to do life audits to help you minimize the impact of negative relationship, and on the other hand, maximizing the positive ones. And maintaining great relationships, I mean, it takes time and effort. You cannot simply maintain a good relationship by not being in touch with your friends and family, but you have to nurture those relationships. If you want to see great result, obviously you should also nurture that. So my personal point of view is as well that every time I think of an idea, I don't think to work on it on my own, but I try to engage with a friend or two to see what they can support me with, and if we can work together, because I know that I can probably move faster when I'm working on things alone, but I can grow further and grow in larger scale if I'm working with the friends that I know who can support me as well. So I think that's the last trait that Kim mentioned, but overall the book is really important to guide us in our professional and personal life. So if you haven't read it yet, I would really recommend to have a look. You might find it interesting. Thank you. Cheers.